In this lesson, I'm going to show you a simple beginner level process that will enable you to take any hymn from the hymn book and transform it into a beautiful arrangement in a modern worship style. So this is the hymn, I Surrender All, played exactly as it is printed in the hymn book. Now listen to this. I'm going to take and play the same hymn, but I'm going to rebuild it into a fuller, modern arrangement. To be able to do this with any hymn, just follow this simple process. First, identify the chords and where they change. And next, I'm going to show you how to reshape the harmony into a simple, modern progression that uses the 4 chords of worship music, which is the 1, 5, 6, and 4. After that, I'll show you how to add a simple color chord, and then we'll add embellishments and ornaments to the melody, and we'll have a beautiful worship style arrangement of this song. By the end, you'll know how to do this with the 4-part writing you find in the hymn book, and you can apply this process to pretty much any hymn. So I'm going to demonstrate this in the hymn that I was just playing, which is I Surrender All. And in the hymn book, you'll find a page just like this. And this is written in 2 sharps, the key of D major. So in the key of D major, we use this bank of notes: D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, and C sharp. 2 sharps in D major, the F and C are played sharp. So we'll use these notes and the chords that are built from these notes. So the first step is just to identify the chords that are happening under this melody. So we want to find out what chord is being implied on the first beat of every measure, and that'll be the most important clue. But then we got to see if maybe the chord changes in the middle of the measure. That happens sometimes as well. But for the most part, you'll find that chords will change each measure, and then every so often in the middle of the measure. So the measure will be split up into 2 chords. So let's go through and take a look at the hymn book page that I've got for you. And by the way, this entire lesson sheet along with the final arrangement is available for you to download for free. There's a link in the description. Grab it and follow along with this lesson. And so we look at the first beat of each measure, and we want to identify the chords. Now, to identify the chords, we want to be familiar with the chords in the key of D. And so if we build a triad from every note in the D scale, the notes I just showed you, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, and C sharp, we'll get a chord associated with the number of each scale degree. So if we build a chord off the first note of the scale, it's the 1 chord. If we build a chord off the second scale note, it's the 2 chord, and so on. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now in any given key, the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord are your major chords. And those are the ones that occur naturally as major chords in the key. And then the 2, 3, and 6 are minor chords. But most hymns stick really close to the 1, 4, and 5. In fact, many songs are played with only those 3 chords. And a lot of hymns are that case. And a lot of times the bass note is what the chord is. So if you go to this first measure, you see that the bass note is holding a D note. And so that's a really good indication that it might be the D chord. So if we look at the other notes that are being played, we've got a D throughout the whole measure in the bass. We've got the tenor is playing this A, and then we've got a D and an F sharp. Well, this measure is by and large a D chord. So we would think of the first measure D chord. And then, if we go to the second measure, look at the bass note. The bass note is playing this A. And so that's a really strong clue that the chord is probably an A chord in that measure. And the rest of the notes bear that out. Here we've got a C sharp in the right hand and an E, so we've got an A chord for the second measure. Now go through the entire song and go measure by measure and see if you can figure out the chords on your own. Go ahead and pause the video right now and do that, because I'm about to go to the next page that has the chords written in. So write them in and then grade yourself and see if you got them right. Before we continue, let me just say, if you're enjoying this lesson, this is a help to you, make sure you click the like button right now and subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this for church pianists. Now let's jump back into the lesson. So here is the same song, I Surrender All, but now I've filled in the chords that are in each measure. So as you can see, the first measure, as we already said, is all D chord, and then the second measure is the A chord, and the third measure goes back to the D chord. The fourth measure is, the chord actually changes in the middle of the measure. For the first two beats, it's the A chord, and for the last two beats, it's the D chord. And then the next four phrases, next four measures, starting right here, this measure, this measure, this measure, and this measure, they're actually the exact same. Nothing is different about them as the first four. So the first four measures and the second four measures are the exact same. Now we get down to the chorus section, and it starts right here, and we start on the D chord. And then the next measure of the chorus right here is an A7 chord. And then the next measure of the chorus, which is right here, is also an A7. And then it goes back to a D chord on this measure. And then the final four measures of the song right here, this is a D chord for this measure. Then this measure has two chords in it. The first two beats is a D chord. The second two beats is a G chord. Then this measure, second to last measure, goes to a D chord over an A. So it's got an A in the bass, but a D chord in the right hand. And then it goes to a quick A7 right here before it ends on this D chord to end the song. Now that we've got the chords in the song mapped out, and the next part is where it starts sounding like a real worship arrangement. Now we take the original harmony that's in the hymn book, and we are going to substitute it for the four chords of worship music. And these chords are the 1, 4, and 5, which we've already talked about. The chords that we've written in, they were the 1, the 4, and the 5 chord, the D, the G, and the A. But there's one more chord that we want to stick in there to get this song sounding like a worship song, and that is the 6th chord. So remember, the 6th chord is a minor chord. So we go to the 6th note of the D scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the B. The B minor is the 6th chord. And so we want to find ways to get the 6th chord in this harmony. And the best way to do it, really, I find, is just to substitute it for the 1 chord. So some of these instances where we have the 1 chord, let's go ahead and instead of playing the 1 chord, let's substitute it for the 6. So I'm going to scroll down here to the next page, and this is where I have substituted the B minor, the 6th chord, in a few key spots, and I've just swapped it out for the 1 chord. So if you remember in the original harmony, we had the D, A, and then D right here, this third measure. Well, I'm going to substitute that out and get the 6th chord in right here. So I'm going to be moving from the D, the 1 chord, to the A, the 5 chord, and then to the B minor, which is the 6th chord. And then everything else is the same. Then we go back to the A chord and the D chord. And then the next 4 bars, I'm going to do the exact same thing. D chord, A chord, B minor. And then to the A chord and then the D chord. Now when we get to the chorus, I'm going to use the B minor chord at the very beginning of the chorus. So instead of using a D here, I'm going to go to a B minor. And the chorus is like a climactic part of the song. And when we go to the minor 6 for the chorus, it gives it a real strong emotional pull, which you'll see in just a moment. Now, instead of playing an A7 chord here, one thing to know about modern worship songs is that they don't really use the 5-7 to 1 sound. They kind of avoid it. And the resolves are more muted instead of that really cliche sound where it's the A7 to the 1 chord. We kind of stay away from that. We avoid it in worship songs. Now, hymns, we have that. They're built on that 5-7 to 1. It always centers around the 5 chord resolving to the 1 chord. But in modern worship music, it's a more nuanced progression, and the resolutions are more subtle. So instead of going to an A7 right here, I'm going to play a G chord. And then I'm going to use the A, just a straight A chord right here. And then this chord we're going to talk about in just a minute. This is one of our color chords. But continuing on, you can also put the B minor in right here. And I actually prefer the D chord right here. Sometimes I'll play the B minor, sometimes I'll play the D. I'll show you both ways so you can decide what you like. And so that's another place where you can put the 6th chord in. And then I've got the G chord here. So I just make this whole measure a G chord so I can keep the chords changing on every measure pretty consistently throughout the song. And then here, I play an A chord, but I don't play that last A7. Again, I avoid that. So I'm going to play this straight A chord. Real quick, if you're a church pianist, I invite you to check out my church pianist pattern library. It's a 127-page PDF file that's got left-hand patterns and accompaniment patterns for your right hand, left hand, chord progressions, and just a lot of resources for church pianists to be able to plug and play in hymns and worship songs. The link for that is down in the description. I think it'd be a big help to you if you're a church pianist. So the next step, I'm going to show you the one chord move that will make this sound advanced, but without making it complicated. And so here's the chord trick. Use a chromatic mediant. So a mediant is any chord built a third away from the home key. So the home key is the D major. And so a third away, you know, would be like B, a B is a third away, or even a B flat, it's a major third away, or an F, which is a third, or an F sharp, which is a third away. Now, chromatic mediant means it uses one of these chords that's a third away from the home chord, but it uses notes that don't belong in the key. So remember our D scale. These are all the notes that are in the D scale. So a chromatic mediant would be a chord that is built on a note a third away from the home key, which is D, and it uses a note that's not one of these notes. And so here are the different chromatic mediants. You can see there B flat is a chromatic mediant, you know, B major, F sharp major, the F major, the F minor. All these are possible chromatic mediants. But instead of getting too complicated, let me just show you the one chromatic mediant that I like to use. Let's keep it real simple. The one built off of the third. So let's go to the third of the D chord. This is the 1, this is the 3, this is the 5 of the D chord. We go to that third note, which is F sharp, and we build a major chord from that, and that's a chromatic mediant. The F sharp chord. And I like to use this as a substitute for the 1 chord right at the end of a phrase. And the best place in this song is right there, right in the middle of the chorus section. If you go, here's the chorus starts right here, and then when we get to this phrase right here, we use that F sharp major chord. And the reason why it works so well is because the F sharp major shares one note with the D major. It's this F sharp. And the melody actually ends on that F sharp. And so it accommodates this chromatic mediant in a really beautiful way. Listen to how it sounds when I play an F sharp chord there instead of the regular D chord. So when you hear that, it's unexpected, but it's beautiful. And then all you do is you just go from that chromatic mediant chord right back into the next phrase, just like normal. You don't have to change anything. So you go, here comes the chromatic mediant. I go to the A chord. Now here's the F sharp chord. Then right back into the next phrase. Now there's also another color chord that I'm gonna mention, and that is to make the 4 chord and play it as a minor chord. This is a great way to get some color in your chords as well. So anytime you have the 4 chord, you can try making it minor and see how that sounds. One way I like to use the minor 4 is just at the end of the song. Listen to how this sounds. Now I'm gonna play the G minor instead of a D. And then resolve to the D major. And lastly, to make this arrangement sound musical, beyond just changing the chords, we're going to add ornaments and embellishments. So when we add in these embellishments and ornaments to the melody and to the chords, just keep this in mind. The ornaments, you want to keep the ornaments simple. Sprinkle them in like seasoning. And we don't want it to sound too cluttered, and we also don't want them to compete with the melody. But one of the cleanest and easiest moves is to go from the sus4 chord to the major. Now you can do this movement on the 1 chord and the 5 chord, and also try it on your chromatic mediant chord that you put in. So a suspended 4 chord, this is what that means. Take your major chords, so say it's a D major, D, F sharp, and A, and think of these as numbers. The D is the 1, the F sharp is the 3, and the A is the 5. So what we're going to do is take the 3rd and switch it for the 4, which is just a note above the 3rd. And we're going to play this chord instead of a D major chord. This is a D sus4 chord because we've suspended the 3rd to the 4th note. And this chord has a gentle pull to the major, and it's a beautiful resolve. So anytime we have a 1 chord or a 5 chord, we can use the sus version of that chord and then resolve it to the major version. So if I have a D chord, I can play the sus first and then into the major chord. And it works on the 5 chord as well. So there's a couple places where we're going to do this, and I'll show you that in the final arrangement, but also keep in mind that you can apply this to your chromatic mediant as well. Listen how it sounds when I use it on that F sharp chord in the chorus. Here comes the chromatic mediant. Really pretty. So what I've done is I've taken the F sharp, which is my chromatic mediant chord, and I made it a suspended 4. So take the 3rd, take it up to a half step to the 4. So I would play the chord like this, F sharp, B, C sharp, and then I would resolve it down to this A sharp. The second is a real simple idea, but it really makes your playing sound good, and that is to take a neighbor tone and use it to embellish the melody. So use a note next to your target note to smoothly move in to the melody note. So this neighbor tone idea can be used for grace notes, where we just kind of flick off of the neighbor note like that. Which is one of the most beautiful ways to do it. We can step into the note. And you can even expand upon this and walk into the melody. And you can also do what's called a turn, or kind of a trill, where we go to the note, and we go back up, and then go back into it. We can think of this as a turn. If the melody is moving, the melody is moving down, but we turn back up to go back down. And then also it can just be used as an ornament where we just kind of trill on the melody note. And then the last one is, and this is probably the easiest, is just to take the chord that you're going to play and roll it from bottom to top. And so if the chord is a D chord, instead of playing all the notes like this, I would start at the bottom and just roll it up. It's a really beautiful effect that it gives. It kind of gives a shimmering effect to the chord that you play. So let's put all these together into the final transformation. Here's the rebuilt arrangement into a modern worship style using these 3 different steps. So I'm going to point out the different things we've done. First of all, at the very beginning, we've got a grace note, which is like a neighbor tone ornament, where we come off the E into that first note of the melody. Really beautiful effect. Now we're going to use the neighbor tone idea to build a turn here. So go to the E, then back up to the F quickly before coming back down to the E and moving into the D for the next measure. So that's kind of that's a turn there. Now here I'm going to use the ornament. I'm going to use the roll on the A chord. There I use the sus4 to the major. So I'm on the D chord, that phrase ends on the D chord, and I'm going to play my sus4. Here's the D, G, and A, that's my sus4. But I've got my octave here, and I'm going to double the D up here, so I'm playing in the right hand this G, A, and D. But I'm going to only play these two notes in my right hand, because then I'm going to use my grace note, neighbor tone idea, to get up into the A and then drop down to this F sharp. So I play, the left hand is playing a D octave, right hand plays this G and D, and then I play the grace note on the G into the A like that, and then drop down into this F sharp. Really beautiful movement using the neighbor tone grace note and the sus4 to major movement. And it sounds like this. Now in the next phrase, I'm going to roll into that chord. Now when I do a roll, I also like to add in that neighbor tone to the melody. So I'm rolling all of these notes. Really pretty way to do it. So there I'm using another neighbor tone. I'm going, my melody note goes from F sharp to G, but I'm going to come into the G from above, from one note above. Really pretty way to ornament the melody there. Then I'm going to use my turn on the next note. Roll that chord there. And then on this, I'm going to use my neighbor tone idea to create a turn. And then here I'm going to use the sus chord again. So I'm going to play the same way, D octave in the left hand, then G, A, and D in my right hand. Then drop that down into the F. Now I'm going to walk into my next melody note using neighbor tones. And I'm playing that B minor here into the G chord, using neighbor tones to walk into the next melody note. Now here's where the chromatic mediant chord comes in, the F sharp major, but I'm going to make it sus first. Now that movement's really pretty. So I play the F sharp in the bass, that octave, and then I play the F sharp chord, B, F sharp sus chord, B, C sharp, F sharp, and then I just come down the chord, and then I flick off of the G sharp into the A sharp. So try that. We get to that chromatic mediant chord, and then we go back into the next phrase where we've got the B minor, or you could just play a D, either way. Roll that chord there, and then this G. Now I'm going to use the A suspended chord here. This is the 5 chord, but I'm going to use the sus suspended version. So I've got the A, D, and A in my right hand. So I'm leaving this E out. So I'm doubling the melody in this octave. And then I'm going to go to the D sus, and I'm going to roll that chord. I'm going to use this grace note on the G to get to the A, drop down to the E, and then resolve it on the third. So my left hand is just doing some simple patterns. If you'd like to learn these patterns and more just like them, click the link in the description to get my free left hand patterns PDF. Alright, so the next step is first grab the lesson sheet for this lesson and down in the description, download it so you can follow along and practice Second, if you want the full toolkit that I mentioned, the Church Pianist Pattern Library is just a lot of great patterns and left-hand patterns and accompaniment patterns for the right and left hand, chord progressions and other things like that in all 12 keys. Check the link down in the description. Third, your next video is on the screen right now. This is a worship piano tutorial that connects perfectly with what we just did today. Click that now because it is the natural follow-up to this lesson that will help you apply these ideas in other worship settings and accompaniment settings. Thanks for watching this video, and as always, if it was a help to you, click the like button. Subscribe to the channel right now if you haven't done that yet, and I'll see you in the next lesson.